As many of you know, we had our vestry retreat this past weekend. And it was a wonderful vestry retreat. At the end, I said, this is one of the best retreats I've been to in a long time. It was a nice mixture of spirituality and inspiration, and then some really good practical stuff as well. And we ended up, one of the things that the leader, Don Huber, who is an associate at the cathedral in Buffalo, led us in. It was a discussion of what is it that keeps us here at St. Luke's. And there were several folks who shared about the relationships that they have here, and how this has been a place where they feel like they're part of a family. And there were folks who talked about how there's something here that really feeds them for their lives, and that they feel as though there's a powerful spirit and presence of God in this place. And so there were a lot of things, and we began to feel really good about St. Luke's. And then we talked a little bit about disappointments. What was the most disappointing thing that happened this year? And the leader said we weren't allowed to talk about that couldn't include Eric leaving, because that would be too easy. So people shared that for them it was coming to the Christmas Eve service and finding that it's not as full as it used to be. And somebody else shared that they were disappointed that there were fewer children in the Sunday school program, just as their children are getting to that age where they can participate. And then someone else said that they are feeling the sense of there not being as many people here. And we went from there to talking a little bit about the fact that St. Luke's is declining in attendance. It's a reality, and that we're not bringing in as many new people as we would like to. And the leader had shared earlier, before we had talked about that, he talked about the qualities of a church that is growing, and he gave us a list of about 20 things, I'm not going to go into that list right now, but the idea that we could stand to work a little harder at growing. And I hadn't had a chance to work on my sermon as I usually do on Saturday, but Saturday night at the 5 o'clock service, it sort of came together. And the gospel was perfect for our discussion about the gospel that talks about don't hide your light under a bushel, and a city built on a hill cannot be hid. And it fit right in with a lot of the things that we had been talking about at the retreat, and some of the goals that we ended up setting about wanting to get the word out about this place. And even though we are on a hill a bit of sorts, we seem to be more hidden than we would realize. A few people shared anecdotes about how that the people they knew who had grown up in Jamestown didn't know that the St. Luke's Church was right here. When they talked about their church, and people would say, "Well, where is that?" And he'd say they said 4th and Main, and it was like, oh, that big church with the tower, oh, that's St. Luke's Episcopal Church. And so in a way, a city built on a hill can be hid, apparently, if people don't know what happens there. And which fits in really nicely with the gospel and the idea of don't hide your light under a bushel. Be salty. And salt, I know, gets a bad rap in our culture right now, especially in this area. We don't want salt on our cars for very long, And if we get salt on our shoes, we were told, to spray vinegar and water on them and quickly, because salt can destroy things. But salt can also preserve and give flavor to life. And so we want to be salty people. We want to be people that look like we're enjoying life, so that people can say, what does that person have that I don't have? And one of those things might be faith that's fed by a community that really supports you and accepts you and loves you and accepts people as they are. That's a great way to be salty in the world. My philosophy of church growth begins with the idea of being attractive, and and I get this from AA 12 traditions, where we say our promotion our promotion policy is attraction rather than promotion. We observe attraction rather than promotion. We don't go out and try to sell people on coming to AA. We just live our lives and hope that people will want a life like our lives in AA. And I think that the same philosophy can hold for the church. That we don't promote church in the same ways that we market other things, but that if we live our lives as people of faith and people of integrity, people will want to know what you have, and they're going to want to maybe go where you go. And so, don't hide that light under a bushel. Don't let that light be hidden from the world. In the same way, don't let the light of this church be hidden under a bushel. What we have to offer is something that the world is hungering for. And we used to say, I know in the old days we'd say, well, I can't invite my friends to church because they all go to church, and I'm not going to take them away from their church. Well, that's just not the case always anymore. We may not need to hound them about coming to church, but to say, oh, we had the best event the other day, which means we have to have some events, right, to talk about. I heard the most interesting talk the other day. Or I went to this really interesting forum, and it was about this. And the person, really? That sounds interesting. Maybe I'd like to come to something like that. And it's like, I'd love to invite you. And in fact, the speaker at our retreat said, don't just invite them, pick them up and then take them out for breakfast afterwards. And do this more than once. Say, oh, I'll pick you up and take you. And that's often what happens in AA, is that how people end up. It's like, I'll take you to a meeting. I'll go with you. And I'll pick you up. And it's a lot more proactive than just saying, oh, come to my church sometime, which doesn't sound real enthusiastic. It's like, if you went to a really good show, you would say, I enjoyed it so much, I want to go again. Would you go with me? I enjoyed church so much, I'm going to go again. And why don't you come with me? And I'll come get you. And so that's a lot more proactive than what we tend to do. And so this idea of shining our light before the world, let your light so shine. You are the light of the world. Each one of you. Each one of you is the light of the world. In a world that sometimes feels pretty dark, doesn't it? That needs salt and light, that needs hope, and that needs to be encouraged and reassured and accepted. There's a lot of people out there that aren't coming to church because they're not sure they would be accepted. And you can say to them, our church is very accepting. And then we need to be accepting, of course. And the speaker at our retreat also talked about how too often, the single mom with the 3 unruly kids gets ignored during the coffee hour, but the young couple that looks like they might have some money to put in the plate gets lots of attention. So we need to be accepting of all people that come into our church. That we need to accept the people of the world. And that was one of the things that attracted one of our younger new vestry members, was that he studied lots of different faiths, and this was the one that matched with his beliefs. And this was the one that seemed to live the way that he wanted to live. And so he had done research before he ever got here, and fortunately we fit with that research, and we fit with that description of what he believed Christianity should be about. And so I think we have a lot of things to celebrate here. I've had a ball getting to know there's some wonderful people here, a lot of wonderful people, and to celebrate that fact and as something that others might like to get to know as well. So the vestry has their hands full with some ideas that they're going to be putting into action, but also you all have your jobs of being the light in the world, and not putting that light, hiding that light under a bushel, and not keeping that city on the hill from being known. So what are you waiting for? Get out there and tell everybody about what we have here. Amen.